About 0.4 hectares of forest disappear every second. Every year, 11 million tons of plastic ends up in the ocean. More than 30% of greenhouse gas emissions come from industry, which could be working greener, but needs to synchronize its efforts. Why is it so hard to fight this? Because the world speaks different languages. Data, solutions, technologies get lost in translation. And that's not a metaphor. Language barriers impede environmental progress. Today, more than 8% of scientific environmental publications are in English. More than 4 billion people do not speak it at a working level. It takes non-English speaking countries up to 6 months to translate key climate research. Disposal instructions, emissions reports, recommendations all are lost or late. Uni as a solutio. Imagine that countries have adopted Uni as a second language. Uni would be about 20% shorter in text form than most languages, reducing the amount of documentation, instructions, online materials. The internet and data centers consume about 3% of the world's electricity, according to the IEA and other agencies. Translations and dubbing of content account for about 10% of the volume of international online data scientific articles, documents, instructions, website translations. If we remove the need for translations between dozens of languages and use a unified standard, we can expect savings of up to 0.3% of global energy consumption at the level of countries like Sweden or Argentina. Reduced emissions by about 70 million tons per year. This is comparable to, for example, complete phase-out of hydrocarbons in one country like Germany. Paper documents, instructions, contracts, textbooks will shrink by 20% in terms of text volume. The world wastes about 400 million tons of paper every year. Up to 30% of this paper is business and educational documentation. Even the transfer from paper to digital media requires energy, and not a small amount. If Uni reduces the volume of these documents by 20, it saves up to 25 million tons of paper per year, reducing paper production emissions by up to 100 million tons of carbon dioxide per year. International climate agreements, such as the Paris Agreement, require lengthy translations into dozens of languages. Uni will make it possible to accelerate the harmonization of measures several times faster, which is especially important in the case of natural disasters, forest fires, accidents. Uni will be easier to learn than most languages. It can be mastered in 2 to 6 months rather than 3 years. This opens access to international eco-initiatives to millions of young people in developing countries where most environmental pollution occurs. Uni global benefits. World environmental projects do not need multiple translations, conferences, treaties, standards discussed in one language. Online courses, instructions, guidelines become available in one language and immediately understandable. This can reduce the number of redundant translations on servers, which also affects the carbon footprint of the internet. Why it's important to act now. Scientists warn, we have less than 10 years left to stabilize the climate and prevent catastrophic change. We already have the knowledge, the technology, the will. The only thing left is to understand each other. Uni is the language of the future of the planet. Uni will not supplant national languages. It will become a bridge between countries, specialists, generations. One language to save one planet. Already now our team is working on the concept, and we try to take into account the interests of all. But it is very difficult because some languages are very different from the Indo-European language group. The basic concept is that the more people speak a certain language, the more words will be in Uni. Please help us by spreading the word and commenting.